What I want to do is talk a little bit about the three different orientations in marketing. I want to use this cheap watch as an example, right? So first of all, we have a product orientation. A product orientation was how people would market things, say in the 1950s and 60s. And these type of TV commercials would be emphasizing the actual features of the product. So they would say things like it's got leather seats, or it's got a V8 engine. So if you were talking about a product orientation for this watch and I was trying to sell it to people, I would say that the band is stainless steel. I would say that it's got a section here that if you pop this open, it's got an extension so you can put it over your wetsuit without changing the band. I would say it's got a rotating bezel so you can determine how many air minutes you have left. So that's a product orientation, right? So when you're selling a product, whether it be an IT product or service or a physical product or any type of consumer brand or a B2B thing, and you talk about the FABs, the features, advantages, and benefits, that's a product orientation, right? And traditionally people thought that that was the way most people would advertise things in the 1950s and 60s. But when competition among branded products became more intense in the 1970s, people started to talk about price because they had several different things that were all similar in terms of product. So why would you make a decision? Well, this one's cheaper. If the two products were similar, then you might as well go for the cheaper one. So that became known as a sales orientation. So sales orientation would be you walk up to someone and say, okay, Lana, I won't even talk about the bracelet or anything like that. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm going to say, if you give me $120 down now and $50 a month, no. If you give me $100 now, no. If you give me $90 down now, $30 a month, for 72 months, you can have this watch right away. You can walk out, give it to your boyfriend 24 hours later. That's a sales orientation. So sales orientation is used by companies in an intense competitive environment where the similarities between products are not very different, right? So that was very popular through the 1970s and the 1980s. And as people realized the market competition is even more intense, you had to have a better reason to be able to connect with the customers. People started to ask questions. So a market orientation would be to walk up to someone, right? And they would say, Josh, do you swim? And Josh says, no. Then you walk up to somebody else and say, do you swim? Do you scuba dive? Do you go on vacation? And if they said yes, and they go on vacation a lot, and they do a lot of scuba diving, you say, have you ever thought about having a good quality watch that's waterproof, etc.? So by asking some questions and trying to determine what segment is actually interested, then you could talk about the features, advantages, and benefits. But you wouldn't waste a lot of time on advertising things if you didn't know that the person you're speaking to was actually a potential customer. So that's a market orientation. A market orientation is you actually do something to try to have an exchange with the customer to figure out whether they're interested or not. And then if they are, then you pitch them. But if not, then you go on to the next person. You save your energy. Right? So those are the three orientations. So the way that this would relate to the different pricing objectives would be if you wanted to maximize your pricing, have a profit-oriented pricing, then you would perhaps have a sales-oriented. So you would just try to sell as many of these as possible, right? If you had a lot of competition, it was something like hamburgers, where one might be $3.69, the other one's $3.79, then you would talk about the features. Because you couldn't say, buy my hamburger because the price is better. Nobody advertises a McDonald's hamburger saying, because of the price. They say because it's got special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Or it's got extra bacon, or it's just got cheddar cheese. So that's a product orientation because the price is sort of the status quo. Okay? I hope that's helpful.